Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing, and today we're continuing our exploration of the history and development of Kunqu opera, one of China's oldest and most popular performing arts. Kunqu opera can trace its origins back to the Ming Dynasty about 600 years ago. During the Qing Dynasty that followed, it became so popular that it was said to have an influence at every level of society from the imperial court down. Emperor Qianlong was a big fan of Kunqu opera. Famously, he even took a role in one performance staged in the Forbidden City.
Emperor Kangxi was a great Kunqu opera fan, but so too were many emperors who came after him. In the time of Qianlong, there were no less than 1,400 actors and actresses in the royal palace. Nanfu, the institute in charge of opera entertainment for the royal family, was the largest royal troupe in the world. In his book Huan Yuan Shi Le, Geographic Information about Beijing, early Qing writer Wu Taizhu stated, "Inside the inner city wall in front of Jingshan Hill at the northwestern corner, there are more than 100 houses in which dwell actors and actresses working for Nanfu. Their area is commonly called Suzhou Lane." Kunqu had been crowned the state opera, and with this, it enjoyed a status unmatched by any other form. Inside the Forbidden City, many stages on which operas were once performed can still be seen. Ningshou Palace, Chonghua Palace and Shou'an Palace each has its own opera stage. The second largest inside the Forbidden City can be seen in Chonghua Palace. Inside one of the palace ruins, there is a smaller one called Fengya Tuan. Emperor Qianlong himself once played a role on this stage to release his passion for Kunqu. But stages of various sizes can be seen in other places frequented by the Qing emperors. The Summer Palace, Yuanming Yuan Garden and the Royal Summer Resort in Chengde, for example. 6 of these are very large, having 3 stories, large enough for over 1,000 actors and actresses. During the years of Emperor Qianlong, Kunqu highlights as a form greatly matured, but the emperor didn't stop at this. He even organized a large-scale script-writing campaign. In 1779, in the 44th year of his reign, a group of scholars well-versed in melodies and script-writing gathered in Yangzhou. Tunes and poems collected from across the nation by Suzhou officials poured into this newly established group, and they then adapted them for Kunqu. Five years before this, Qian Detang, a native of Suzhou, spent 12 years compiling a collection of popular highlights, no less than 446 of them. Most of the highlights we see today were recorded in this collection. The emperor's writing campaign lasted 4 years until 1782, at which time a voluminous work entitled The Sea of Highlights was produced. It contained no less than 1,113 highlights staged in the Ming and Qing dynasties. Thanks to this great book, many Kunqu highlights have been passed down to the present age. Many classical titles we know today have survived simply because they were performed as highlights year in and year out, and these highlights provided an archive of music drama from which would rise Peking opera. But first, Kunqu highlights enabled a multitude of forms to flourish. Over 600 years ago, Kunshan tune, the predecessor of Kunqu, began to take shape in the township of Qiandong in Kunshan Municipality, Jiangsu Province. After Kunqu was listed in the first group of oral and intangible cultural heritage items in 2001, many people came here to trace the early steps Kunqu had taken. Qiandong is really the birthplace of Chinese opera. Because of Kunqu's unique position in opera history as the ancestor of all other opera forms, of the more than 300 opera forms in China, it came above all the others as the candidate to be put forward for inclusion in UNESCO's list.
Because it's最古老，它的这个剧本的文学性非常高，它的演唱是载歌载舞，
所以它成为母剧或者叫祖剧，很多剧种都从昆曲这吸收营养。
全国的剧种们都在向它表演，就是舞台表演形式都在向它靠拢。
可以说，昆曲的这个乳汁哺育了众多的戏曲。
Kunqu opera is regarded as the ancestor of all operas in China. A good example is Yuezhu opera. During its evolution into a popular form of local opera, Yuezhu drew considerably on Kunqu opera.
Shangshan in Zhejiang province is the birthplace of Yuezhu opera. When the earliest form of Yuezhu appeared here, it was made up of folk tunes people sang in the countryside. Yuezhu opera began its evolution due to the performances of two storytellers in a village named Dongwang in 1906.
其实他早期就是坐着唱，然后两个人站着唱，然后他进入上海了之后呢，他要改变，他也动脑筋，就是粤剧的改革经过了很多人，其中袁雪芬呢就参与了这个改革。
By 1944, Yuan Shuofen had gained quite some fame at the age of 22. But she knew that the path Yuezhu would have to take to gain widespread acceptance in Shanghai would be long and difficult.
所以大家都要改革，不改革他站不住脚了。
In the 1940s, the Shanghai entertainment industry entered a period in which many different genres became popular. But as movies and dramas were entering their golden age in the city, Yuan Shuofen and her colleagues decided to imitate certain aspects found in them and stage a number of modern plays. But they were to be disappointed, as audiences simply didn't like them. It was then that Yuan Shuofen thought about taking a look at Kunqu.
我去看了昆曲，我觉得昆曲有东西可学，它的舞蹈身段啊，还是呢很优美的，所以我们请昆曲真正讲出我们那个基道，来帮助我们。
Zhang Juanjian had entered the Suzhou Kunqu workshop at the age of just 11, and he'd gone on to major in old male roles. Half a century had passed since the reform of Yuezhu, and by 1996, Zhang had passed away and Yuan Shuofen was in his 80s. Ni Chuanyue was the only one still alive from what was known as the Chuan generation. The sound of the flute can no longer be heard coming from the former site of the Kunqu workshop, but memories of his days there remain fresh in the mind of Ni Chuanyue, who was a close friend of Zhang Juanjian.
那么他就是这些做他记的就，这个走路走表演，怎么走教他们身段怎么走，都叫这个名字技术导演。
When Yuan Shuofen founded her Shuosheng Yueju troupe in 1944, she hired Zhang Juanjian as its technical director to teach dancing moves. Zhang Juanjian was responsible for creating all the dances for the new Yueju dramas, and under his guidance, Yueju performances became not only more elegant, but also standardized.
整个的舞蹈里面完全不一样了。
使得越剧呢，既是有很优雅的唱腔，但是又是有昆曲那样的很优美的舞蹈。
Today, it is hard to pinpoint the exact features Yueju opera gained from Kunqu, but this dance in the story of Liang Shenbo and Zhu Yingtai perhaps gives us an inkling of what Yueju borrowed from Kunqu.
这就是袁雪芬自己把它学过来的，这不是越剧里边有的，这是完全是昆曲指导，他们就这样做的。
Yuan Shuofen described Kunqu as Yueju opera's wet nurse.
孩子不会忘记奶娘的，你没有这两个奶娘，有好多东西你不能木跟字母呀，要有根的，这根在哪里呢？根在这里。
It was not only Yueju opera that borrowed from Kunqu, other forms did as well. Performers of Suju opera and Huju opera invited Zhang Juanjian and his friends